All right, so we're back this time. Like I told you guys, we're going to flip the script. My main man, brother from another mother, same father, JR, he's going to be interviewing me on my spiritual path, why we chose a spiritual path. And I'm just calling it a spiritual path for what it is, but it's just the path less taken. We're going to get into that. So I'm turning things over to JR, or I'm in the hot seat and he's interviewing me. So we'll see how that goes.
Man, I am looking forward to this. Hopefully, we can help you guys out there on this journey with your spiritual path. Ray gave me free reign to ask whatever I want, and I'm going to start it off with this. Why'd you have to pop off the shirt before we recorded? Why you got to show off?
Something about the body, getting the body in shape and getting the body, I've been working out pretty consistently for the last 20 years, 5, 6 times a week, no weeks off really, maybe 1 week because I got super sick or something like that. Consistently, right? Never taking anything, right? No tattoos, never, never taking anything, obviously, creatine, that kind of stuff. But man, I feel like I've always felt like the body's a temple. And over my workout path throughout the years, it's become a clean way for me to, and I've abused it at times. I've kind of gone too hard for too long. So I've abused the body at times, but it's become a good outlet for guys like us that have these different anxieties and different issues. It's become a good outlet because other outlets that I see other guys choose, and again, I'm not judging anyone, I've just seen it. They choose weed or they choose alcohol or they choose women. But I find that if you can make a good relationship with the body, kind of it's where the soul lives, right? At least in this plane, while we're here now, it's where the soul is. So it's kind of like what you create with the mind and the soul is the body. So, and as you change the body, then you're like, what else can I change? So the body's always been, even though it's where the ego lives as well, it's always been a great tool for me to just feel at my greatest. So like before I connect with you, before I connect with anyone, I make sure I'm at a peak state. And some of that is I go to the gym or that I just kind of stretch, do some mobility. I make sure I'm in a great place physically. And then that always translates to a great place mentally, even though sometimes I'm not at my best in the gym or whatever that is, right? Because we all ebb and flow, but I don't ebb and flow in not showing up.
I remember our buddy Nate once told me, whenever I get into good shape physically, my business always does better. That stuck with me, man. When he hit me with that, I was like, man, that makes a lot of sense because you're taking care of you so you can bring the best you to everything you do. So let's talk about this. I'm going to go back to Night at the Roxbury. What
Sure.
is love? What is
Baby,
love?
don't hurt
Baby, don't
me.
hurt me.
I love that,
What is
man.
love? What does love mean to you?
What does love mean to me? It's a great question. What does love mean to me? And again, this is like an evolving thing with me because love is a big one. Love, when you go down a spiritual path, choosing love is the most important thing. And man, what's showing up for me right now, as you said that, the biggest thing is learning to love ourselves. And as I say that, I'm even uncomfortable saying it to you. It's not so much that we don't like other people. It's much more so that we hate ourselves. At some level, there's a self-critic in there. There's a hate towards the self. And I think a lot of it, as I start to read and evaluate more and kind of like grow in consciousness, it's from this ego that we created. So we created this ego, but we know it's not really who we are. So we created it in time and space, but we also know it's not real. And that identifies with the body. So, but we believe that we're the ego. There's a false identification that we believe that we're that. And it happens all unconscious, but this is kind of how it breaks down. We believe with that. So we identify as that. So as long as you identify as the ego, it's not the divine in you. It's not the one, it's not for lack, it's not the child of God in you that God made. It's the ego that you made. You didn't create how God created. You made this ego. You didn't create it. And then there's a false identification with this ego, but you also know the ego is not real because it makes you feel bad. It makes you also know you can't believe it, right? You love it because you created it, much like you love your son, right? So you love it because you created it. So that's because you made it. You also know there's a lot of lying in there and there's a lot of judgment and there's a lot of drama. And a lot of the self-criticism and self-hate comes from that, comes from believing that voice. So self-love, to me, love is loving yourself unconditionally, no matter what.
I hear what you're saying about the ego that you made, but I want to push you a little bit on that concept. Sure, we made it, but how much of that is our parents, our friends, the people we're around, other outside influences? How does that play into that ego that we make for ourselves?
Well, that's why you made it. You made it to protect yourself from that. You made it to protect the ego is a protection mechanism, but in truth, there's nothing to protect you from. You made it because of that. And it's fine. It's part of every human. Your son's going to do that. We all do that. It's the false identification over time with the ego that then you can't disidentify from it. So you think you are it. And most people operate their lives like they see from the ego and they operate from the ego. You know, one of the teachers you and I both resonate with, he said this well. He said, judge not by appearances, but judge righteously. What he was talking about, if you really think about it, is by appearances, where you can see, touch, taste, smell, the senses. Judge not by that, right? Because that's going to lead you astray. But see the divine in that other person. Well, you can only see the divine in the other person if you can see it in yourself. You can only love your neighbor if you love yourself.
So that is the two main teachings that I understand from Jesus Christ, is to put the Father above all else and love your neighbor like you love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, speaking to the point that we create this ego, we create this inner turmoil, we create this hate, right? It could be hate. It could be that far.
It's a lack of love. It's you chose, the Father creates in love. You chose to create differently than that. So you make something, right? So you made this thing out of fear. That's all it does. It's all it can do is produce fear and lack, because you made it out of fear and lack. You didn't create as the Father created. And the choice was, the Father gave you infinite free will to create however you wanted to create. The wrong choice, or quote unquote wrong, wasn't to choose differently. It was to become identified with that, the belief in that, the false belief in that. Make sense, JR? I know it's a little heady, but
no, we're going to bring it back down, because you like to go to outer space sometimes, and I need to bring you back, reel you back in. And so in the crowd, let's say that we're surrounded by that ego, or that identity could be something like, I'm a real estate investor, or I'm a mortgage broker, or I'm a finance expert. You have this weird identification thing that you can't break free from. For me, I'm a smart ass. I'm a tough guy. You know, all these things that we call ourselves and tell ourselves that may or may not be true. And I like the way that you put it, that we created these things to protect ourselves, to survive in this world, because we thought that's what we needed. And so going back to the idea.
And within there, hold on, JR, within there, because you thought you were of this world, right? Our teacher taught us, right? You can be in this world, but not of it. When you identify as you're in this world and you're of this world, then you need an ego. And it's not right or wrong to have the ego. Everyone has an ego. Is it using you, or are you using it? Make sense, Jay?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So let's go back to this. Like I said, we got to love the Father, God, above all else. We got to love our neighbors like we love ourselves. So we're talking about learning to love ourselves is the first step in this journey. I mean, what work did you do? How did you even realize that maybe you didn't love yourself and you could do a better job?
Man, there was always a self-critic going on. Even now, they're still going on, right?
Tell me what it says now. What's it say right now to you? What's that self-critic
You're not doing
saying?
well. The self-critic comes up most when I'm not at my best. And this is kind of work. Okay, so now we're getting into the work I'm doing like this week. I'm still, listeners, I'm sharing with you stuff I'm still wrestling with. So be gentle with me. It's not something I've perfected. And perfect isn't the goal, but it's not something I've worked on a lot. I'm just now becoming aware and conscious of it. And there's always levels and evolution of this, much like physical fitness, right? So JR, we're going to ebb and flow everywhere in life. Even in our spiritual path, we're going to ebb and flow. We're going to go back and forth. It's just part of life. What I've realized about myself, my self-critic, he goes off when I'm not at my best. When I'm not at my best in the gym, when my financial statement isn't the best it could be, when I'm not the best dad, or like when I'm not at my best, even on the spiritual path, JR, I judge myself. Like when I'm not, reading and meditating at a high level, when I'm not connecting, when I'm not doing my spiritual practices at a high level, it does not tolerate Ray not being at his best. It judges, it criticizes, it goes off, because he expects a certain level. So like if I go to the gym and I'm not able to do my certain number of push-ups or pull-ups or whatever that is, he can, but we do it anyway. So I am learning to sit with that and sit with the emotions that come up versus suppress them or express them. These negative emotions that we feel, this critic, he wants to be heard. Doesn't mean you have to like listen to him, right? But be with him. And what I find, if I can be with him, man, it's a lot easier, because everything I was doing, guys, I've tried everything, smoking it. I've tried all kinds of ways to express it or suppress it, and it doesn't work. What you want to do, at least what I'm practicing now, is being with that critic. Doesn't mean I listen to him, doesn't mean I let him, but if I can just sit with him and hear him out, he actually shuts up and goes away. I can actually not, because you're never going to get rid of the ego, but you can not listen. But not listening happens by listening and letting those emotions come up to be healed. These emotions are things that you created. they're going to come up. So it's a matter of listening, letting them come up, and then releasing them. And you and I have that same practice in general. I mean, you guys do it however you want. This is more not getting into what I do when that comes up. Man, I go to the Holy Spirit and have him release that, have him forgive that and release that. That works for me, but it only works after I sit with it. I have to sit with the emotion and expand the heart and expand the love, because the reason love is more powerful than fear, JR, is because love can embrace fear. Fear can't embrace love. That's why self-love is so powerful.
You've been very successful. I mean, very successful in everything you do, or at least that's what it appears to me. So why did you choose to start going down the spiritual path versus, hey, I need some Ferraris and some yachts and I need to make it rain like we see all over the IG and TikTok and all that? Why the spiritual path for you, Ray?
It's a great question, JR. And I want to give the guys a real answer. And the answer is, we had different deals, whatever that number is for you, like money wise or whatever. We have different success symbols on the outside, whether it's a new car, money over here, money in the bank, buying a new house, flying private, like whatever that goal is for you, right? That's going to be different for everybody. What I realized is once I got some of these goals, right, that same critic would always find something else. He was never happy. And if it was temporal. He could only be happy for a day or two. And the next thing he was finding something else. Oh, I got to grow more. Oh, I got to go do more. Or I'm not doing enough. Oh, I'm going to go compare myself against this guy. Never really truly being happy or at peace. So what I realized, Jared, is what really at the soul level, I'm like, dude, these things in the world aren't making me happy, aren't bringing me peace, aren't bringing me joy. I wanted peace and joy no matter what happened in the external. And then the other thing I was looking for, JR, too, was I was looking for some kind of sense of security and safe. But once you make the money, you're like, oh yeah, once I make the money, then I'll be secure and safe. That's not true. Then you worry about the tax man. Then you worry about what to invest it in, because you made the money or you made this achievement in an energy of lack, an energy of separation, an energy of anxiety. So then you think you're going to go out and give some of that money or enjoy your life. The whole process, you didn't enjoy it. And then now when you get this thing, then you're going to enjoy it? Bullshit. You don't have the muscle for joy. You have the muscle for sacrifice, stress, and struggle. The ego will not enjoy anything. The ego will never bring you peace. I like how Kanye said it. Master Kanye said it well. What do you do when the Jesus peace won't bring you peace?
Sounds scary.
It's true. You and I have experienced that. Like the you and I of today, JR, is much more financially, health-wise, more successful. What was it all for? I still had that critic. I still don't feel fulfilled at the soul level, right? If you're going for fulfillment at the soul level, the external world has not given me that. And I don't believe, my personal opinion, that it'll ever do that. It's not supposed to. And it'll never give you safety and security. That I'm sure of. I'm sure that the external world and the things of the world will never give you safety and security, nor peace and joy.
Yeah, I know you don't want to talk about how-tos, but I feel like this is the point where we have to ask is like, how do you identify that critic? How did you realize that you needed to do something totally different? Like we all hit the dissatisfaction. That's the achiever's dissatisfaction. That's normal, right? We always want more. And we think never being satisfied is the way to live life. And in some ways, maybe it is. But how were you able to separate that and realize that there was a true path? Because this is what I'm going to call what we're talking about. To me, sounds like the truth in the way that Christians talk about the truth and the path and the way. How did you figure that out? How did you separate the two and get clear so that you knew this was the true path for you?
I think the first one, I think all humans evolve through pain, right? You have enough pain and suffering through that. It's just the way the human evolves, right? You have this pain and suffering of something's missing, and you come to realize, hold on, more of the external world, me surrounding myself with groups and guys that want more and want to do more. And this idea of like, I'm not enough and I'm going to get my enoughness by proving it out in the external world. I realized I got to a place where this no longer works for me. I realized that this is not going to work now. It's never worked, and it's never going to work in the future. Once I realized that, I said, okay, different path, right? Because now it's not going to work. And then I started reading new books. Like one of the first ones I read was Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. Simple book, but she talks about that. Like most of us don't love the self. She was the one that published all of Wayne Dyer stuff. Hay House, she's done great stuff. I definitely recommend that book. It's a great book. And just learning to love the self, I said, wow, this is a new path. If I could learn to actually love myself, irrespective of what goes on, then that will lead to new things. And what I also learned as I kind of went on down this path, I said, the things that I'm looking for are the gifts of the soul. Well, they're not going to be found in the external. They're not going to be found in the material. The safety and security I was looking for and the fulfillment at the soul level is going to be internal. The peace and the joy has to be irrelevant of what's going on in the external, right? The peace and the joy and the fulfillment of the soul has to be eternal. It has to be a part of me. It can't be outside of me. It's already inside, right? The kingdom is within you. The kingdom is you. There's no separation. You are the kingdom. Everything, all these emotions are already inside you. He built the system complete. He didn't miss anything. But if you're looking for these things in the external and expecting the external to do that, it's never going to do that.
And it's hard because our entire society now more than ever is built on the external appearance. What that guy is doing, what that guy has, what he did, what they have, all that kind of stuff. And what you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, is the answers are within. And so when I'm thinking about these things like, hey, I don't have that yacht, or hey, I don't have I'm not flying private, it's like you're asking yourself the wrong questions. So how do you, because I can't imagine that you just said, hey, I'm going to pick up this book because did somebody put you onto it? Did you hear from somewhere else? How do you get that positive input that tells you, hey, dude, you're asking the wrong questions. Now, how can I make more? How can I have more? How can I be more?
You know, I've happened to have a lot of great like mentors and teachers in the space. And one of the first ones, you know, my wife has always been a great mentor in that she kind of got on that path first. I think women, because they're that feminine, the divine feminine, they generally don't have all the denseness and hardness. So they'll more easily get on a spiritual path because they're more close. They give birth to things. We don't do any of that, right? She was starting to get on that path. But then really at a deeper level, the doctor I see, my holistic doctor, he heals through A Course in Miracles. He put me on to the Way of the Heart, which is the book by Shanti Crystal. And they put me on A Course in Miracles, and they put me on that book, Joel Goldsmith. This is all my main doctor, and he heals through the Holy Spirit. He doesn't believe the lies that people come in, oh, I have cancer. No, you don't have anything. Much like our teacher, Jesus, and again, he didn't believe that. He didn't judge by appearances. He's like, he didn't believe that. He's like, no, that's not reality. That might be your reality, but that's not reality in actuality, right? That's how he could heal people. He didn't heal people of himself. He healed himself of what the Father was doing through him, of the divine of him, of that divine consciousness. That's what healed people, that were open to that same consciousness. It's the consciousness that we're looking to develop. And he kept messaging me, this doctor. I would see him every 6 months. And at first I was like drinking from a fire hydrant. But over time, I said, wow, he was the only guy that I knew at a high level that really had peace, that really had joy, that even through COVID wasn't shaken, like nothing. It was like, and whenever I saw him, he was like that. You know, JR, when you get into the environment of someone, you're like, dude, this guy's on something else. Like this guy's just floating on a whole other system. And what I want more, I don't even want it. I want to share his consciousness. I want his connection to the divine. And he's been a person that I know that's actually living day to day, moment to moment, Christ consciousness.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And that's how he heals people. And he's been doing it 40 years. So, but I also got to give myself a little credit. Ray, he's been doing this 40 years. You've been doing this, a couple of years. So just give yourself time, and he's been practicing and he does healing sessions. I can share he does free healing sessions. I can share those with you if you want, JR. But yeah, so, and then kind of that led to a path. Christy had some coaches. So I got some coaches in that space to help me. And they do different things. Some of them work with the Akashic Records, which is kind of like a 12th dimensional field. They tap into and they help you with that. So just getting spiritual coaches to help me in different pieces of that really open up this apple and then kind of find my own path within it. Find, hey, what brings me more peace? What expands my peace? What expands my joy? And really starting to lead with the feelings and the heart versus leading with the mind. The mind is a great tool, but if we just go in the mind and the mind is not directed by the open heart, you're going to struggle. Now the mind is directed by the ego. But if the tool of the mind is directed by the open heart, man, now the mind can do magic, right? Because now it's a divine's will, right? You turn it over to the divine's will, and then the divine will is kind of operating through you, and then magic starts to happen. But otherwise, when you're in your head and it's run by the ego, you're always going to perceive lack because the ego was born out of lack. It can't create abundance. The ego will never create abundance, right? So if you want abundance, you're not going to get there by getting more money. Having money and being wealthy, I've also learned, JR, are two different things.
What's the difference? You
can have money. To me, abundance is the feeling of abundance, the feeling of no matter what, you're going to be abundantly provided for, taken care of. It's a trust issue. Kind of like you're always saying, JR, in abundance, you begin to pour first. Abundance isn't something you get. It's something you already have and you pour forth. Much like, think of a coconut tree, right? You and I are Caribbean. We like the coconuts, right? So the coconut tree produces, out of its connection to the divine, it produces coconuts from the inside. So abundance for the coconut tree is a production of coconuts, right? You wouldn't ask the coconut for more coconuts, right? The tree of itself is producing abundant fruit, and then it gives it away. And then in that giving away, it gets more fruit. It's abundance wouldn't be to that tree, hey, you go out there and you hang 1,000 coconuts on it. That's not abundance to that. Abundance is coming from the inside. And then when it does come back, JR, when somebody does bring more coconuts to that tree, it's coming back from the divine in them back to that person, right? Kind of like this idea of like the bread you cast in the water comes back to you. What's the bread you cast? You're not entitled to the bread that your neighbor casts. It's the bread you cast into the waters that comes back to you, right? So out of your giving, more will be given to you, right? This idea of like to him that hath, more will be given, right? He'll have more, right? Something like that. I don't follow it verbatim, but you know what I mean? As you start to notice your abundance, you have to share it, then more is going to come to you. And it's not coming from that person or from that investment or from that thing. It's coming from the divine flow back to you. So if that one client goes away, it'll come from another client because you're connected to the source of abundance, which is the kingdom of heaven inside you. But if you're separate from it, JR, if you're separate from it and you're operating out of the ego, well, then you can't produce a lot of fruit. You can't be fruitful. You can't glorify the Father in that way, right? Only in bearing much forth rich fruit do you glorify the Father.
The coconut tree analogy, keep that. I like that. Yeah, right. With the Caribbean touch and everything.
Yeah, good, man. I learn these things and then I find ways to share them. And JR, love is also sharing, because when you share an idea, it enhances it. If I share 75 hard with you and you do it, it enhances it. It grows more. That's an abundant frame. But if I share something physical with you, like a banana, well, then I lose the banana, right? But this is kind of why I love the ideas of sharing. When we share things, we expand them, we multiply them. And if more of our brothers can pick this up and actually use it in their lives and even just start to make a distinction, wow, I'm operating out of ego. I'm operating out of a lower consciousness. I'm operating out of my lower self, and start to make a choice and even realize, JR, step one is realizing that you have an ego and that you can choose to listen or not. Everyone has a higher will. Some call it the comforter, the universal spirit, call it whatever you want. Everyone's got a higher will, and we can choose to listen to that. But it's not going to speak as loudly and as sexy as the ego. It's that quiet, still, small voice, but you got to learn to listen to it. And it comes in silence. You know why? Because it offers peace. This guy offers craziness. This one comes with peace. It's not gonna fight this guy. This guy doesn't even see this guy. The peace of you, the Christ of you, the Christ consciousness of you, the Holy Spirit in you can't even see this guy. The Holy Spirit will at least acknowledge it, but he won't fight with it because it's fighting against an illusion. Why would he do that? It's like, you chose to create this. I'll honor your creation. This guy will say, hey, I'll honor your creation because you made it, but I'm not going to listen to it. I'm certainly not going to engage with that thing. You made a gnat. We made a gnat. And this is what you substituted for the kingdom of heaven.
We have spoken before about, well, let's set this up. Our society today is a microwave society. They want push buttons answers, instant gratification. Go to Google, get an answer to any question. But I hear you talking about pain and suffering, and most people don't want to have anything to do with pain and suffering. Society today thinks that you should be comfortable, cozy in your safe space. Why would you say, in your opinion, why is pain and suffering necessary for growth?
So if you're living out of the ego consciousness, and all of us are, part of the hardest things for us, at least for me, has been on the spiritual path, is sitting with these emotions. And it's usually not the actual sitting of them and meditating with them and offering them up once you feel them, right? Because to heal them, you got to feel them. And Kirby Hodgson, that doctor, taught me that. He's like, Ray, if you're going to go on a spell, you got to feel it to heal it. So you got to embrace this, feel it, heal it, and then offer it to the Holy Spirit. He'll do the rest. But if you're not willing to feel that and heal that and be with that, then, right, like then you're not ready to release it, right? You're still holding on to it. So I think the first step is sitting in meditation or prayer, whatever you want to do, just sit in silence and really allow yourself to feel these things and be okay with them. The thought JR, of sitting with them is always much more intense than actually sitting with them. But of course, JR, we stored these things with pain, all this hurt and not enoughness and feeling inadequate, etc. All this stuff, JR, we stored in there with pain. We chose that, right? So it's going to come up with pain, right? Like they call it a samskara. The yogis call it a samskara. In Buddhism, they call it samskaras. But in essence, it's like a beautiful stream, but you dammed it up with a bunch of rocks and stuff like that. So now when you go to heal it, it's gonna pop off, right? But it's coming to be released. It's coming up to be released. So if you can sit with that and you can tolerate that versus go distract yourself. And I get it, guys. I'm guilty too. In society, we're taught, hey, go to YouTube. Hey, go to Insta. Hey, go to Facebook. Hey, drop a gummy. Hey, go smoke. Hey, go have a drink with a friend. Like you're taught to distract yourself, really. And distract is a great word. Distract, off track. You're taught to distract yourself, but when you distract yourself, it never feels better later. How you know you're distracting yourself? How you know it was an ego trick? Really study the ego. Like the ego isn't bad, but I study that. I study him because, dude, if I do something and afterwards I don't feel good about it, that was an ego trick. But if I know what he's going to do, hey, hold on, you want me to go overeat, so then I don't go do this. Well, you know what? We're going to go for a walk instead, right? And then he doesn't like that, right? But I always, when you know you're choosing for the Holy Spirit, when you know you made a choice for love, it always feels better later. Although initially it will probably feel uncomfortable or unfamiliar. The problem is, JR, we'll choose shit cold beer, hot beer and pizza versus going with the unknown and the unfamiliar. We're so addicted to comfort that we'll choose, you know what I mean? We'll choose to live with our parents, in the parents' basement versus go to the unknown and go to the unfamiliar. And it's not that it's wrong, it's just unfamiliar. We'll choose the familiar, same old cold pizza and beer versus making a new choice. If you can make a new choice in that moment that serves you long-term, even though it might not feel uncomfortable, man, you're in the river, man. I'm proud of you. Like you're making change now. Like now, like to me, I don't care about how many times you fall off, JR. I don't care how hard it is. I don't care about that. I care you stick on the path. I want to be with people, with guys. I don't care what they do. I don't care what they have. I don't care about any of that shit. I want to be with guys that are committed to that are committed to going downriver no matter what happens. Yeah, I'm going to fall off. It's part of the process. I'm going to go back, but I'm getting back on again. And I'm not going to get off. That's what I care about.
We've talked about security and safety and all of us wanting that. And I hear you saying that all of that is on the other side of pain and suffering. So your path to what you want is through the obstacle. Is that right?
Yes.
What does peace and joy do for you, really? Does that get you like, more dollars in the bank? Does that get you more cars or more jewelry? Peace and joy. Why do you want peace and joy?
Oh, dude, man, peace and joy are of the spirit, man. Peace and joy is what I'm doing this with you.
Why can't money buy you peace and joy?
It's not supposed to. Money can serve a function of enhancing peace and joy, but I'm presupposing you already have peace and joy. Most people that have money aren't at peace and joy already. They think the money will get them peace and joy. Like you said on our last call, hey, why not just make the happy? Why have to make the money to then go make the happy? When you make the money out of lack, JR, this is key. I care about who shows up to what shows up, who you're going to be. If the person that made all this money made at it from lack and not peace and not joy, and the whole thing was a struggle and they were striving and they were sacrificing, that person will never, that money, because it was made in that energy, will never lead to peace and joy. Peace and joy is the journey. Peace and joy is being, and it's irrelevant of the external. So I care about who you're going to be. If you can be peace and you optimize for peace, meaning you make choices for peace, and I'll give you an example of that. You make choices for peace, and the happiness just flows, because the happiness flows secondarily from peace. Because Jay, if you can't get to peace, joy and love is a fucking mile away. You know what I mean? You got to get to peace first. Peace is home. Once you get to home, now we can go for joy and everything else, right? Joy is just an expansion of peace, right? Joy is who you are. JR, at the core, all of us are peace, love, and joy. In our true being, in our Christ self, in our Christ conscious self, in our divine self, in our God self, in our higher self, whatever you guys want to call it. Some people get caught up in the language. I can flow with this different ways. But in your true self and your true being, you're nothing but peace, love, and joy. You were made in that, JR. You are pure spirit. You were made out of the thought of pure love in form. JR is the pure thought of love in form. That's how the Father created, out of peace, love, and joy. Why? to extend himself, to expand himself, to see his son as himself. And then he made it even more fun. He goes, I'm going to give them all individual, unique opportunities. They will never be another JR with his unique key ever again, nor has there ever been. With his unique code, never again. And he made us all like that to express what? To glorify what? Himself, to have us come home, to expand the energy, to expand himself.
What do you say to the people out there? Because I can hear it. The people saying, yeah, that's easy for you to say because you've already made your money. You got it. You have the things. Yeah, now it's easy to go chase peace and joy. What do you say to those people out there? Should they start with chasing the money, or would you have done this differently if you knew what you know
this
now?
was just the reason I'm sharing this path is so that hopefully you can make a different choice. And if not, make the choice of like, hey, I'm going to go for this money. Fine, go for the money. But you can still be at peace and joy now as you do that. So then you can have peace and joy then later. Don't sacrifice peace, joy, and beingness now. Be present with the moment. Don't be so attached to the outcome. I could have had way more and done much more with much less effort, enjoyed it more, been more present, been more peaceful. Guys, I missed the first 2 or 3 years of my daughter's, being born because I was out there hustling, grinding out of that old energy. I didn't need to do that, right? I could have thought a lot bigger because I was coming from lack and scarcity. I played small, right? So I always playing not to lose. Like thinking there was something I could lose. There's something you can lose, guys. Everything that's born in time dies in time. This idea in Buddhism that they call it the impermanence of things. If it's born in time, money, it dies in time. The house, born in time, dies in time. The ego, born in time, what doesn't die? Your soul, your spirit, eternal. That's what we care about. How do we expand that? Through consciousness, through growing, through evolution, and making the choice to choose peace, to choose love. So let me give you a real example of what that looks like. I raised, and again, we'll just talk numbers now, whatever. I'm not trying to brag or boast, just kind of where I'm at in the process. We raised money for a 996 unit. So a big deal. It was $100 million purchase. We raised 10 million bucks, and then we were in charge of raising 3. Man, I went out, banged the floors in the middle of COVID, raised that money, presentations, made 200 calls, grinded out, and then the structure was complex as hell, and it took forever, and we raised the money, and okay, we got it done, awesome, all right, great. And it took 2 or 3 months, man, I grinded through it, proud of myself, all right, I learned some things, and and deal's still going, it'll do well for us and our investors, and a next deal came along. I sent it to you. It was a retail deal. So I had never done retail in my life. So like floor and decor, like a big retail in terms of like a mall, like a shopping center with a bunch of different things. I had never done it. The guys called me, hey, Ray, do you mind helping us out, raise some capital on this? Yeah, I'll look at it. Deal made sense. I like the guys. I go, how are we going to make this work? And I said, but now I'm optimizing for peace. The first thing I don't try and maximize anything anymore, because when you maximize, people don't look at what it's going to cost them to maximize. So usually the default mechanism in the old programming is I'm going to maximize everything. But that old programming, that old lack consciousness never looks at what is it costing me to maximize everything. Hey, JR is going to maximize his podcast clients. Well, that's going to come at a cost. Usually it's family. Usually it's peace. Usually it's health, right? And then usually those costs have the added bonus now requires you to look for an escape. You have to go out, drink, or do something else because something's missing. You know that you're missing something else. So you have this trade. You took a trade that you don't want to make. And usually that trade, JR, I'm still journaling this out, so I'm new. That trade means you chose profits over peace. You chose profits over peace. So I call that your peace of ability score. I still haven't written this out, so I'll write this out and I'll share with you guys. But I call that your peace of ability score. Whenever you optimize for peace over profits, now you're in alignment. So let me show you what this deal now looked like. Hey guys, look, I like this deal. We don't need to do anything. I like this deal. Let me go out and raise some capital for you guys. Don't need to pay me anything. Let me just go see if I can. Because again, it was a new deal. I hadn't done it. Hey, I got somebody who's interested. All right, guys, let's get together. And again, I don't know these guys. Here's a conversation with the 2 guys that I don't know. It was a big deal. It was a $100 million deal. And I think they had to raise 40 million in equity, but I was raising a small part of that. They came to me at the tail end. I said, look, guys, I don't want to commit to a number. I know you guys want to know how much I want to raise, but I don't know because this is new to me. I've got someone who's interested, so I can probably go raise more and help you guys out. I like you guys. I like the relationship. I want to build this. I'm optimizing for peace here, guys. Obviously, it's got to make sense. It's got to make sense for me. It's got to make sense for you. But at the end, guys, I want us all to feel good here. I don't want to, push overly competitive on you, you push on me, and then we negotiate back and forth and make this complicated. I want my guys to go direct to you. I don't want to have my own fund because I've had my own fund and then I have to go do a bunch of accounting, a bunch of complications. And sure, I can make more. I could charge more fees and I would get a double promote and I can get more. I don't want that, man. I'll give you my guys. I'll give you my fish. And sure, if you choose, you can take my fish and go get more fish from those fish later on. But I'm willing to give up control, and you guys just do it direct because I want my guys to get a good deal, and I want to make sure it makes sense for me. The economics got to make sense for me too. And I go, hey, X% works. That works for you guys. They were like, yeah, we could do that. All right, cool. Let's move on. I got a call back from the guy, and he was like, Ray, I've never seen anyone negotiate like that. I go, I'm not negotiating. I'm optimizing for peace. Ray, you could have made more this other way. Yeah, but I'm not doing that. But Ray, you lose control of your investors. I'll get more. I'm not optimizing. So now you know what happened, JR, is because they chose that. Now the next, just yesterday, I happened. He called me back. He goes, Ray, I got another deal. And I go, why don't you call the other guys that were negotiating with you that they raised more money for you? He goes, because you were easy to work with, and it was a pleasure working with you. And you sent me your guys direct, and it was easy. So we'll come to you first.
Optimized.
So now when you optimize, and you look at the word maximize versus optimize, they're different. When you optimize, you're now making a choice. And ideally, the way I run my life now is I optimize for peace first. If it costs me my inner peace, and then Paulo Coelho, the guy who wrote The Alchemist, said this.
Yeah.
If it costs you your peace, it was too expensive. I fucking love that, Jay. It is. If it costs you your inner peace, and so much of us in the past, JR, how we made the money, how we did things, we were willing to sacrifice our peace, our inner peace. And what is the inner peace? Yeah. If you're still talking about that guy or that employee in your head at night, that's inner peace. If you're thinking about that thing you should have said to that person, that's inner peace. I don't want that. I want peace. And sure, the profit's got to be there. It's got to make sense, right? But that's second. And I'm not willing, again, and there was my old partner, the old partner I did that first deal with, the bigger deal. He's like, Ray, why would you go do that deal with them? You could have done it with me and you'd have made more. I don't want more. But and you could have done this and that, but now they have your investors. He could not understand why I would make this choice. I go, I'm choosing peace. And it's not for him. I love him, right? But he's choosing the old model, which is fine. God bless you. But I can no longer do that. I can no longer make that trade anymore, Jay. And sometimes it does cost you some money. And you just got to be okay with that because you're choosing peace. But I get my peace back, man. I get my time back. I'm not worried about the fun. I'm not worried about any of that stuff. You know what it allows me to do, Jay? It allows me to operate unattached, which is hard, right? But the moment you create it, the moment you have an expectation, you have attachment.
That's my final question before we wrap this up, because I know we're coming up on an hour here. Why are you doing this project? You don't need to do this. Why are you doing this?
We teach that which you most need to learn. I don't want to do this. I'll be honest with you. But if I'm going to follow in my brother's footsteps, if I'm going to be an example, then I get to go out to the masses and share this. And it's not for everybody, right? I share like he shared, and I learn and I get to share that. And by sharing it, I expand the message. I increase the message. And I get to have more people, to have more peace, more love, more grace. Grace. You know what comes off all that, Jay? Grace. And you know what grace means, Jay? The unmerited favor. I love that fucking word. Unmerited. You don't have to go earn these things. These things are by grace. So when you live a spiritual life, you live it by grace. And then peace, joy, love, abundance flows naturally. You'll always be provided for, and learn to trust that. And again, guys, I'm not doing this perfectly. I'm not being this all the time. I'm practicing, but I am sharing to you what doesn't work in the hope that we can all do this together. Because all of us, my opinion, is we're all helping take each other back home. We're all helping each other come back home.
Well, Ray, I have enjoyed this. I hope our listeners, you guys out there tuning in, have at least gotten something out of our time together. I know I have. I've got a couple pages of notes, man. Thank you for including me on this.
Thank you for having me. Actually, out of curiosity, give me one or two things that you're like, oh, wow, I hadn't phrased it like that.
Well, I already gave you props on the coconut tree. I love
you like that one?
Production comes from inside, because you have been talking this to me in a couple different ways. And that was the first one that I was like, oh, yeah. I mean, I heard it, but that time I could picture it. And so yeah. I really dig that. And I think that the optimized piece is super interesting. And I don't think people will grasp that completely, but I hear you talking about optimizing your life in all different areas. And the only way you can do that is to love yourself and then to understand what's important to you. Like for both of us, our family, our fitness, our faith is important to us. So you're optimizing towards those things, which when those are in line, that gives peace, right? That gives love, that gives joy. And so I hear you talking about that in different ways. And I'm with you. You know I'm with you because I'm optimizing over here.
Yep. Yep.
And then I think that the security and safety is on the other side of pain and suffering was interesting to me.
Yeah. And there's nothing, what I've realized too is there's no safety and security in the external world, JR. And that took me a while to realize that the world's always going to change. And we as humans, especially the ego, doesn't like change, but it's going to change. The only thing that's not going to change is your connection to the divine. As long as you have it and you can keep nurturing that, that's going to be constant. And your safety and security is found there. As you're dwelling in the secret place of the Most High, as you're abiding, there you will find safety and security. But out here in the body's not meant to be safe and secure. The body's temporal, which is why it's the home of the ego, right? Because the ego makes its home here. So you identify as a body, you identify as JR, as a real estate person, and then it takes it worse. You identify with things, oh, my car or my investments or my balance sheet. Identify with your true self, right? So yeah, there's no safety and security out there because everything's always changing. You can see it in the markets and everything else. That's always changing. So it can't be your safety and security. If you want peace, can't be outside of you. It'll never work.
That's mic drop right there.